Welcome to the Rob and Jen Go podcast. Real trips, real tips. Let's go. Today we're talking about something every cruiser thinks about, cruise budgeting. Because let's be honest, a cruise can either feel like an amazing value or become way more expensive than expected if you're not prepared. From drink packages and excursions to specialty dining and onboard spending, there are a lot of little costs people don't always think about when booking their trip. So today we're sharing what we've learned over the years about budgeting for a cruise, where to save money, where it might be worth spending more, and how to avoid these surprising charges at the end of your vacation. We also have a cruise budgeting planner and spreadsheet on our Patreon page if you're looking for some additional support as you're planning your cruise. But for now, let's just talk about our first cruise. What thought we had once we paid for the cruise, and back then we thought, that's pretty much all we're going to pay for.
Yeah. Maybe if you're a first timer, a lot of times you might think, well, cruises seem to be all inclusive and they got the cruise fare and, everything seems pretty straightforward when you go to book the cruise or when you're going through a travel agent and they sort of give you the options that you have for your cruise. But it turns out that there could be a lot more things that you could be paying for that you don't realize.
Yeah, and you know what? That's very true. If you're not keeping track of your onboard expenses on the app or on the TV, and those add up very quickly at the end. We saw that a few years ago with that bachelorette party on board when they got their final bill, and it was about 6 times more than they thought because they didn't buy the drink package, and they ended up paying for all the drinks individually.
Yeah, and if you've been cruising before, you always see guest services on the last day. You'll see the line of people who are going to settle their bill and didn't realize they were going to have a bill to settle afterwards. So you don't want to get caught off guard. It's always best to sort of keep these things in mind we're going to talk about today when you plan your cruise and when you budget for your cruise so you don't get caught off guard.
Yeah, and a budget for your cruise starts to look very different when you start to plan for it. So when you're thinking about things like gratuities and the drink packages, shore excursions, whether you're going to buy them through the cruise or whether you're going to purchase them on your own from a third party, those can always add up really quick depending on how many people are in your party. Specialty dining, we've seen that a lot lately. People talking about specialty dining, and do they buy the unlimited dining package? Do they buy maybe on Royal Caribbean a Chops Plus One or a limited package depending on how many days their cruise is? And then, of course, souvenirs off the boat, maybe some what we call cruise collectibles on board that might have the name of the ship on it, might be a Spirit jersey. We've got a daughter that collects Spirit jerseys from every ship.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, too. It's you're going to be visiting a lot of ports a lot of times, and depending on the type of cruiser you are, some people like to just stay on the ship. But if you're going to visit a lot of unique ports, you may never get a chance to go back there again. So you're going to want to get some souvenirs, spend some time in the ports, and really make it a memorable experience. So you need to make sure you budget for that as well.
And when you think about being in port transportation costs, if you're not going on a cruise-sponsored shore excursion, whether there's taxis out front waiting for people or whether there are Ubers waiting for people out front, needing to take into consideration what a port transportation cost is. When you pull in, are you going to walk? Like in Ensenada, for an example, you can walk everywhere downtown, but if you want to get out to the wine country in Guadalupe Valley, it's 45 minutes. So how much would it cost you to hire a driver or take a taxi to go all the way out there?
Yeah, that's true too. Another expense that isn't necessarily obvious up front is your gratuities. Mm-hmm. So the cruise lines will make it straightforward by setting a daily gratuity amount that they'll add to your bill. But if you're initially shopping for your cruise, you're going to see the cruise fare and that's it. So you have to be aware of not only the taxes and fees, port fees that are going to be added onto that, but the gratuities, because you're going to want to make sure to take care of staff. Now, gratuities have become a bit of a hot issue online on whether the automatic gratuity should be left on or taken off. and a lot of discussions about, where those gratuities go, and is it just a way for the cruise line to sort of get some extra money out of you? Does it really go to the staff? How is it broken amongst the staff? But even when you're in your when you consider your transportation costs and your ports, another cost on that is gratuities for that as well, because your tour guides, your transportation in the ports are gonna you're gonna want to be able to tip them as well. So
Yeah, and I think that if you've got questions about gratuities and where they're going and to try to solve some of the myths, we recently wrote a blog post about cruise gratuities. I think, let's be honest, we are pro cruise gratuities and adding them on ahead of time because of how many people cruise gratuities go to, and then us providing additional gratuities to those people on board that go above and beyond for exceptional service.
yeah, I think a lot of people aren't aware that here in the United States, we have a tipping culture, and when you receive services from, say, front of the house staff, it's typical that you would pay a little bit extra for good service in the form of a gratuity. But what you don't really consider on the cruises is that the majority of the staff are going to be behind the scenes. And our understanding is that some of those automatic gratuities go deep to laundry assistants and maybe back of the house cooks and cook staff that wouldn't normally get a gratuity if you only give it to the front of the house staff. So as Jen mentioned, we tend to opt for the automatic gratuities, and then if we do get exceptional service from front of the house staff, we tip additional gratuities to them as well.
And then there's the casino.
And there's the casino.
And for us, we have put out some social posts, but we are people that do play in the casino. We understand not everybody does, and people need to gamble responsibly for sure. But certainly, we have to set a budget for our casino spend so that we don't go over. We have seen a couple of incidences where people didn't realize how much they were charging to their room in the casino and then got to the last day and weren't able to cover their entire bill. So if you're going into the casino, you really need to make sure you've got a casino budget and that you're keeping track of what your casino budget is if you're charging it back to your room. We do charge back our casino spend to our room because we do have the Royal Caribbean credit card. So we do get double points for that spend, and that's how we go ahead and take advantage of that program. But we have to keep track of it.
Yeah, because, and again, from the Royal Caribbean perspective, assume it's very similar on other ships, but everything that you do is tracked on your CPass card. And so when you're in the casino, even, you're going to want to join the loyalty program for that casino. And then you're going to want to use your CPass card in the machine so you get credit for, the play that you're doing, and you can accumulate rewards. But the other side of that is that it makes it really easy to just press a button and add to your room charge. So if you're on a bit of a losing streak and you aren't really keeping track of your budget, it's easy to just kind of keep adding room charge, And we have seen people that unfortunately don't have the budgeting or don't have the control to manage that, and so you've got to be aware of that.
Yep, absolutely. So I think one thing that's helped us along the way has been setting some realistic budgets for cruising instead of trying to make everything as cheap as possible. And I think we also pair that with what our benefit status is. So as Rob and I have increased our benefit status with Royal Caribbean, there are things that we have gotten at an additional discount or things that we have gotten for free of charge. So, as an example, Rob and I no longer buy the drink package. We used to buy the drink package every time. And then Rob and I became diamond status, which allows us to have 4 free drinks per day. And we
Per
take
person.
per person, and we take advantage of those. And that, along with maybe a free drink or two in the casino, given our casino status, we have seen a cost savings there because we're no longer buying those packages.
Yes, and I think a lot of cruise lines have also gone to offering discounted drinks depending on how many passengers they have that are taking advantage of the drink package or not. If they're not selling a lot of them before the cruise, then you may see opportunities where they'll have like a happy hour special or a drink of the day that's going to be discounted as well. So you have opportunities then to maybe save some money there. And sometimes it can take a lot of calculating and sort of trying to estimate how many drinks you think you're going to have, how many sea days versus port days, things that'll, you really have to sort of do the math on it and see if the drink package makes sense.
Well, and that's a really good point. I think the thing that I would add is that when people think about the drink package, they're thinking about the alcohol part.
Right.
And I think you need to then calculate in if you're a bottled water person, because you can't get bottled water without a water package, drink package. You'll just get a cup of water. So if you're somebody who likes bottles of water to carry around with you, that's part of the deluxe beverage package. Coffee is another one of them. If you want an upgraded type of coffee, not Starbucks, that doesn't participate, but if you want an upgraded latte at one of the cruise, what am I trying to say? That one of the cruise places like Windjammer,
Yeah,
for instance.
one of their coffee shops that isn't necessarily a specialty Starbucks shop. So.
Yeah. So I think that's important. And then I would also say, soda, I know lemonade and tea are included, particularly if you go up to the Windjammer for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. But if you are a soda person and you want to have soda, so it's not just the alcohol, it's the entire compilation. You have to figure out what your value is and where the value fits in for you.
One other thing we realize that there are some things that are worth paying for and other things that we personally skip. Sometimes we like to do the specialty dining, especially if we can get some deals before the cruise where they may offer specials. Jen had mentioned a Chops Plus One that Royal Caribbean's famous for, where you'll pay for the Chops Steakhouse dinner and then they'll give you another specialty dining option later on in your cruise. So it's all really about just sort of picking and choosing the things that you think you're really going to enjoy and that are worth the added expense and putting those in your budget.
And everybody will have a different opinion on that. People will say, well, this works for me, so it should work for you. It might not.
Right.
We were just, my friend Julie Davis over at No Point Left Behind Travel this morning and I were having a discussion about the thermal spa. And she always buys the thermal spa, and we don't buy the thermal spa. And that just goes to show you how differently different people cruise, and that both are okay. It's what your personal preference is. So as we think about general cruise budgeting tips, first one is set a total cruise budget. And again, gratuities, pre-hotel or post-hotel stays, flights, parking, excursions, spending money in ports, all of those things count when you're putting together a budget.
And one thing that I would add to that as well is travel insurance. One thing that we hadn't really been using a whole lot, but as we cruise more and we go further abroad, you really need to look at those travel insurance plans, not necessarily at what's offered by the cruise company, but you can get third-party travel insurance as well. And some of them, if you travel a lot, you can do annual plans that really make it, worth considering. So,
Absolutely. As Rob mentioned, number two, prepay what you can. Spread the costs out. Make sure you've got everything before you get on board. You can always find a better value before the cruise than on the cruise. And a really great example of that is the internet. So for an upcoming cruise, the standard day for one device is $28.99. I was able to purchase it for $17.99 because I'm buying it ahead of time. So it is always, we think, in your best interest to at least go out and take a look at it to see what you can afford and see what you can budget before your cruise. Because once you get on board, you're kind of stuck at full price.
yeah, and if you think you're going to, one tip I've heard others talk about, and I agree with, is if you think you're going to buy something like the drink package or the internet, get it as early as possible, get it reserved, because you can always cancel and rebook it when the price goes down. So get it locked in.
That's
You
true.
know what your maximum spend is going to be, and then keep track of it and keep an eye on it. And if it drops, then cancel it and rebook it. And we've managed to get some pretty good savings out of that, depending on what flash sales or things that the cruise line offers before our trips. So.
Yep, that's a good point. Number three, watch for onboard spending. Those are things like the shops on the promenade or the esplanade. And it's not even just the shops, it's all the tables they have down the middle that are trying to entice people to spend money. Photos, photos come individually, they come in packages. So it's really important to understand what your travel party looks like. When we take our kids, a lot of times we get the unlimited photos because I want photos on board and at ports and so forth. But then when Rob and I go by ourselves, because we do have diamond status, we each get one 8x10. So we've gotten in the habit of getting the free 8x10 and not spending money on the photos. As we mentioned, the casino, and then specialty coffee and snacks, particularly at the Starbucks. If you're a Starbucks fanatic, you know that that'll add up really fast on board as much as it does when you're at home. Number four, decide what matters most to you. And I was talking a minute ago about people cruising differently and that there's all different kinds of styles and everything is okay. So, some people love shore excursions. Other people want to splurge on a balcony instead of staying to an inside room. And then some people prioritize dining with maybe an unlimited dining package. Maybe they want the flexibility of being able to order food from anywhere that's got an upcharge and not have to worry about paying for it or having it add up on their bill at the end of the cruise.
Yeah, much like any other vacation that you plan, you want to spend the money on the things that are going to improve your vacation.
Yeah. And that last but not least, I think we've said this a couple times, check your onboard account regularly. The nice thing is on Royal Caribbean, it updates in real time. You can see what your minus is and you can see where all of your charges are. And then if you need to dispute a charge, you can certainly go to guest services right away. Last year, we were on a cruise and we were checking our app as we were walking off the ship. I guess I should say just before we were walking off the ship, and the spa had charged me for teeth whitening and teeth whitening that I didn't use. So they got our cabin number confused with somebody else's cabin number. I had to go down to guest services. They called the spa and got it removed, which was very kind of them. And we were really happy that we weren't paying for something that we didn't use. But had we not checked and walked off, that might have been a very different story.
Yeah, much like we've talked about in other podcasts before, there's certain things, certain situations you want to avoid. We talk about pier runners kind of a lot. Well, another one is you don't want the walk of shame when before they can clear the port, they have to make sure everybody's bills are all settled. So when they start making announcements and you hear your name and deck number come across the loudspeaker and you have to make that walk to guest services, nobody wants to do that. So be sure to just keep tabs on it and make sure you get all that settled before the mass rush and the crowds at the last day when everybody suddenly realizes that they missed something.
Right. So this is always our favorite segment of the podcast. It's just quick fire fun question. So our quick fire question today is, what's one thing you're willing to spend extra money on during a cruise? We did a blog post the other day and we highlighted our top three: the internet, specialty dining, and of course the casino. So our choices to you are those, and then we'll add on drinks, shore excursions, upgrading your cabin as a couple of other options. So let us know in the comments below what you want to spend your extra money on during a cruise. We'd love to hear from you, and we always like to see what people are willing to spend and maybe not spend on. I saw a guy the other day, he didn't want to spend money on parking, so he thought it was cheaper to take an Uber than parking. Okay.
And it can be. I mean, you look
Yeah.
at a port like Los Angeles where it can be, what is that?
23.
$23 a day. Still, if you're doing a 7-day cruise, you know,
That was
it's
kind of his point.
yeah, $150. And then you think about if you had to leave the airport at home, you probably parked at the airport, and that's every day. So,
Yeah,
it can all add up. But my personal favorite thing was, it used to always be the drink package, but now I think to your point, we don't need a drink package anymore. So probably the casino.
Probably the casino. Absolutely. So, as we wrap up this podcast, Again, cruise budgeting doesn't mean cutting out all of the fun. It just means planning ahead so you can enjoy your vacation. A little preparation goes a long way, and finding the right balance between saving and splurging can make the cruise experience even better. If you found this episode helpful, make sure to follow us on social media for more cruise tips, travel content, and behind the scenes fun from our adventures. We've got several coming up. Don't forget to check out our Patreon site for exclusive resources, planning guides, and bonus content. From Rob and Jen,
Safe travels.
and see you on board.